Hello and welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. And today I'm still at the Kilbeggan distillery and I'm looking at a beautiful water wheel. And I'm using this as a bit of an example of how was whiskey made back in the days. And I don't mean back in the days like the 1950s or something like that. I mean more like the 1820s or 1790s or something like that. So back in the days, you also had to have something to power your mash tun rotors or your pumps or anything that would move automatically. Your pulley systems for the malted barley to go up and down. So everything that needed some rotational power or moving power was powered through a water wheel here. So the water wheel is taken with a blockage. You take it out and it starts turning. This is actually done here by hand. You have a little crankshaft and you crank it up, and they don't crank it up all the way. It could go much faster. They don't want to have any wear because it's really old equipment, and they really want to have it indefinitely running. So they just let it run at a very slow pace. Obviously, when you have it run for power, when you run the equipment, like really run the equipment, then there is no moss and green stuff growing at the blades. And the blades are wooden, so you have to change them like every century, decade, so 10 years, maybe 15 years, depending on how well you clean them, like every such month. And so the idea behind that is you supply energy to your distillery. The distillery needs something to turn the rakes with inside the mash tun. If you're good, you had some pumps. You needed some pumps. If you have a pulley system for the malted barley or anything that really needed to be some rotational or moving power. And we see the drive shaft here goes to a big cogwheel, and the cogwheel goes to another cogwheel, and that brings in the main shaft into the building. Let's follow that main shaft and have a look how that goes inside. So the water wheel, the main shaft ends up here, and as you can see, it's a big shaft with a lot of connections to it. So you'd have like turning connections upstairs where you have something rotating, or this big flywheel here that just connected right through this room here with a big belt and would turn a later added roller mill. Upstairs there were mill stones, so they really had stone discs to mill down the barley. And back in the days, this here is later added as a modern safety measure for if you can actually see it when you come here to the distillery, but it's that nobody loses a finger here. Back in the days it was all open, there was no worker safety here, and this is like the main shaft. You could connect stuff, and there was probably one guy who was responsible for all the energy. Do we have enough water and all that kind of stuff? So that was really the main line. You don't just flip a switch and the machine goes on. You really have to just connect it manually and it would start turning, and sometimes you need more water, then you crank off and take more water into the water wheel. So this is the main line. Let's go upstairs. There's another connection up there as well. So the shaft was turned upside down, went through the ceiling, and then turned 90 degrees again, so we have a horizontal shaft again. And here we have a crankshaft, and that crankshaft brings the motion into a linear motion, so we can go up and down for a pumping motion. So this here was a wash pump back in the days to pump the wash from where you had it to where you needed it. And so let's move on and have a look what else was just powered by this shaft. Can you still remember the shafts that were going through the ceiling at the first shaft inside? This is the end of it, and this was the turning for the millstones. The millstones were enclosed in a wooden box, so you wouldn't get like flour dust going all over the place. And this is what it looks like inside. So there were big millstones that were turned, and the actual grain was put on top in this hopper here and going into the millstone and taking it from the inside to the outside. It was falling down, then collected and going to the bin downstairs. And over there you see a pulley system that actually brought the grain up. So you didn't have anybody with a bag running up the stairs all the time. So they actually have mechanized this. So back in the days in like 1850 or 1830, that was really, really good. And you replaced a lot of manual labor with that. So the shaft from what you've seen earlier with the pump ends up here, is distributed to the two mash tuns, comes up from the top, and then has another set of cogwheels that just distributes it, and that goes round on these teeth and just turns and rakes everything, and that is the mashing. They actually had a pump to pump in the water, and they could let the water out through the false floor. The only thing they couldn't do automatically was getting the draft out. So after you've taken in the grist and you've mashed and you've got your liquid out, then there were guys going in with shovels and just shoveling it into bins or whatever they had and taking it out for farm or cattle feed. I don't know what they did back in the days with it, but yeah, so that was the mashing. Also very mechanized. This one is a bit younger. It's already in the early 19th century, but still very interesting to see how everything can be done mechanized. So here we have a steam engine. It was built much, much later, 1887, and this is the original place where it stood, as you really will not move that big of a machine. And it connects to the drive shaft on the other side. So you have a clutch here, you have a clutch for the water wheel, and you shut everything down and you can just adjust it, and then you start running the steam engine. They actually didn't run the steam engine not that often, as the water wheel really gives you free energy and the steam engine just needs coal for it. The steam engine has 150 horsepower and the water wheel has 160 horsepower. So when they ran on steam, they ran it a bit slower. And the steam, obviously, before the steam engine, you need pressured steam. Afterwards, you could use the steam for the brewing tank, and you could use the steam making engine to heat the brewing tank, as they were pretty much sophisticated for having hot water for their mash tun and not having to heat it some other way. And so this was kind of their backup engine, and the backup engine just for the mechanical part of the energy. And now let's have a look how the distillery obviously needs heating energy, so how they did that. The other kind of energy you need is heat. The most heat you need is for, obviously the stills. So what they had back in the days for heating the stills was, peat. Peat bogs were very common around here. So they cut the peats. A lot of people were cutting peat for heating their homes, and then also for heating stills. So this here is not representative for Kilbeggan. These are the old Tullamore stills from the very, very old Tullamore distillery in the town of Tullamore. They actually put it here for displaying purposes, that not everything is lost to time. And they were a bit bigger than they used here at Kilbeggan. So it's not quite representative, but it shows you how it was back in the days. And below that, you would put in the peat, you would fire it, you would have someone with bellows standing here and just pumping air into it. Here we have a little bit of a mechanized fan going in, probably connected to the crankshaft there, and just made it more automatic. But with that kind of size, you would probably already have some coal under there. And that is the way that whiskey was distilled back in the days. Very, very different to what you have here. It's amazing to be here and see all this evidence of this history. It's amazing. There's much that I just didn't show. And if you ever come to Ireland, if you come here, it's amazing. Visit this place, book the grand tour, the tour here. It's amazing. and find out how whiskey was made back in the days. Yeah, I hope you find this video interesting. If you found this video interesting, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.